In this lesson, we're going to look at creating tables in a database in a number of ways. First of all, let's start a new database. So we're going to right click, we've seen this before, right click new database, and we're going to call this athletes only. Okay, then we can go to OK. It should then create the database for us all. So you can see the athletes only database table has been created for us. This is the database. We now need to create tables. Now there's a few ways we can do this. I'm going to start off with I would say the slightly easier way. So we go to athletes only, tables, right click on tables, and we go to new. Then we go to new table. Then we can type in our details for the athletes. Now it's the same thing as last time. So it's a column name. Data type I'm going to select as integer because I'm going to have the ath ID as a primary key very soon. So let's think forward a little bit. Allow nulls, no, we do definitely not want nulls. Okay, and then we can go to the next field, and if you remember, it's fname. Now we're going to make this a character type field, and we're going to make it about 50, so that should be plenty for most options. We're going to allow the nulls. I'll tell you more details about that later, but for now we'll keep that the same. We're going to do sname for the surname. We're going to make that 50 again. And then finally we go into the telephone number. Now the telephone number is an interesting one because we're not going to make it numeric, because generally what I normally do, if you're going to calculate on a number in some kind of way, you'll make it numeric. But we're only going to use a telephone as a reference just for now, so we're not going to be really doing too much with that. Okay, once we've done that, we got that quite happy, we can go to right click, we can go to save table 1, and then we're going to put inside the table there, so it's going to be athletes. Okay, I'm going to call it the same as before because I'm going to show you 3 different ways of doing this. That's that way. So we go to OK, and now you can see inside the tables you should see athletes there. Now if we go right click and select top 1000 rows, you'll see there's no data in there yet. There's no problem at all. But you'll see a very interesting point here. We could have typed in this SQL statement and it would have been exactly the same thing. So select top 1000. Now we're just doing that from before. We could have said create table, and then we could name it athletes, and I'll show you an example of it here. Okay, so we would have typed inside this pad here, create table athlete, ath ID is integer, fname var carry 50 50 50, and you can see there it's exactly the same as what we did earlier. So it's first name, surname, and telephone. We've made them 50. We made them 50 earlier, and that's a second way you could have done it. Okay, but we'll come back to SQL statements in more detail later. Okay, so we can close that now. It's already done. Now the third way is a way that I prefer to do because there's times when I've already created what's called a flat file, a CSV flat file. Now we created a CSV flat file earlier by in the athletes table, if you remember. We created this information with ath ID, fname, surname, telephone. We put already some data in there, and because it's already formatted as a CSV file, we should be able to import this into our new table. Okay, and the way we do that, let's just for now get rid of this table by right clicking, deleting that. Now this can set sometimes a bit problem, but no, we're okay. Okay, so let's just make sure that's okay. So we go to athletes only, we'll refresh that to make sure that's fine. Now on here, what we can do, we can go to athletes only and tables, and then if we go to athletes only, and you can see now tasks, and we can say import flat file. Now if we import the flat file, we move to our location where the file is saved. It's my documents and CSV files. I can find it. 1 second. The athlete, we go to open. That brings this up. It's the database object. We go to next. Then it previews the file for us. You can see all the information that we put in our CSV file is already there. Okay, we can go to next. Now this is where SQL Server has actually estimated what we want to do. However, we don't want authID as an envar character. We want it as an integer, so we can change that. We can keep fname at 50. We can keep sname at 50. We don't want telephone number as integer. We can call that envar 50. Now this time, I'm going to make the database, the table, a primary key on the athlete, because we want to make that a unique identifier, because we only want one athlete with one number. So we're not going to allow nulls either, so it can't be actually blank. We can allow nulls on the other ones, and we're not interested in making the rest of them a primary key. So we're fine on that. So that's another way to do so. Just recap. We've made authID an integer, first name, surname, and telephone a character, 50 characters. We've made the authID primary key, and we're not allowing nulls on that. Okay. Go to next, and then we can go to finish. Now this thing. Now you can see success is actually displayed here. So it's imported the table. Now if we go to athletes only, refresh that, tables, and we should get exactly the same as last time, but this time it'll be full of data. So select top 1000 rows, and you can see we've got all the data from our flat file table. Now there's another reason why I like to use flat file tables, and that is because if we need to change any information regarding structure or field types or whatever you want to in the future, if we type it all in here, we can find it quite difficult to update the data again. But if we got the flat file tables saved in a different file location, like in here, that's why I call it CSV files. We're going to create some more later. You've always got them to fall back on if something goes wrong, and you can construct your database quite easily. So as a recap, we looked at creating SQL tables today. We looked at creating tables as a new table. We looked at creating tables as an SQL statement, and we looked at creating tables by importing a flat file table. In my opinion, the flat file table is the best way to go because it creates a backup of the data for you automatically. You can reuse time and time again.